What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. Joined up by, as always, by my man Jonathan. What's going on, Jonathan? You doing all right?
Doing great today, man.
As y'all can see, we have a special guest here with us tonight. Uh, Eric Robinson, formerly of the Falcoholic. He was on a few years ago with us, talking about the Senior Bowl. I know a lot of y'all probably interact with him on Twitter, whether it be in the spaces that he runs or just, having good social discourse on, what the Falcons should do. But he's one of the guys, like when y'all hear me say, like, people I trust have certain opinions. He's one of the people that I trust. So I figured, with the season being done now would be a great time to have him on and talk about it. Eric, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me on tonight. And
Yes, sir.
I'm ready to talk a little bit of Falcons football, man.
There you go. Well, before we get too much further, everything looks a little bit different tonight because my normal app that y'all know I've been having issues with, uh, like absolutely went nuclear. It
Yep.
is on our time 7:23, so we've been trying to do this since 7 o'clock, and so if you see the powered by little SteamYard thing going on and nothing behind us, you know why. Because I finally gave up and just got mad about it. So y'all have to forgive me for it not looking as nearly spiffy tonight as it normally does. But nonetheless, y'all are here for our opinions, not for my graphics. So, Eric, I'm gonna obviously start with you. Like,
Yes, sir.
we got you on for that reason. Like the Falcons finished with the same record that they had last year, 7-10, but it
Mhm.
feels like a different 7-10. What were your like initial like 30,000 foot view on the season itself?
Well, coming into the year, I honestly felt like they were going to go 7-10 this year. And I tweeted that out. A lot of people asked about my prediction for the year, and I said 7-10. I feel like it was going to be a 7-10 year, but it was going to be a different feel to it. Um, Largely because I feel like the roster makeup from this year compared to last year was completely different. I felt like it was a better team. It was a more skilled team, but they still had a little ways to go. And that's exactly what we saw. We saw a team that, yes, they were 7-10, but guys, they were a handful of plays away from being a 10-win team, 11
Oh
win
yeah,
team.
dude.
And they
Oh
could have
yeah.
been playing this weekend, honestly. But I think that is the difference between a young team learning how to win, learning how to
Mm-hmm.
close games, learning how to make certain plays late, and a team that's already been there. They already got their feet wet when it comes to playoff football. They already got their feet when it comes to December football and learning
Right.
how to win games that way. And they still have to fill that gap there. But I think it's in a positive direction. I don't want people to look at it and say, well, they went 7-10 back to back years. You got to look at the context. You got to look at the field, look at what's played, and you'll see it's a different team from last year, in my opinion. And I think they're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I definitely like I come away, obviously after the Tampa game, finally beating Tom Brady. I don't care what anybody says. Um,
It took us
finally,
a while. We got here, but we're
that's
here.
right. That's right. We
Yep.
got here. He was so scared that he couldn't finish the
Didn't even
game.
want to finish, man.
Right. He
You
just
made
didn't want
made
to get
made
shut
him
up.
run, man.
That's right.
Made him
That's
Hey,
right.
run.
he saw
Um,
he saw Grady. He saw Grady make that big play, and
dude,
he said,
that play.
Yep.
"Okay,
He's like,
I'm
nope, I'm out. I'm out. I
I'm out.
can't. I
No, not
can't.
reliving that."
I can't
Yep.
have the ref save me again. So I gotta. He knew Grady was trying to get him back for trying to kick him.
Right,
That's
right.
so. But yeah, no, this team definitely felt different. The coaching staff even felt different in the like decision making process. I don't think there was nearly as many like head scratching decisions. Now, if you're like reading Twitter on game day, everybody's losing their minds, but that's how fans are. That's what we do. We question every single call, but like
Yeah.
if you go back and look at it, like there wasn't as many head scratchers this year as there was the first year. And I thought that was a sign of growth. You saw a coaching staff that, molded their scheme more to the roster that they had,
Yeah.
running like I made, beginning of the season, I made, comments about like, Parker Hesse being like that H back and, that fullback tight end hybrid. And, oh, well, they were going to cut Keith Smith. He's not going to have any snaps. And
Right.
yeah, I was wrong, like completely, because like you incorporated both of them to a, you know, well-oiled run machine that was well suited for the talent that we have, O-line wise, QB wise. Was that something that kind of like struck you as being not something that you were necessarily expecting?
You know, I kind of sort of look. It's easy to look at the roster and say there's some development that needs to happen, but I think sometimes we forget that this is a young staff. This is a young. This is the front office is led relatively by, you know, a rookie, not a rookie GM, but a young GM. So there's some development that needs to happen there. So Arthur Smith, you know, he came to the team from Tennessee. You know, he has some accolades as a play caller, but I still think he needed to learn how to juggle the responsibility of being a head coach and a play caller. And it's going to take longer than one season or a season and a half to figure that out. And you saw a little bit of that. I thought the last 4 weeks, once they made the insertion of Desmond Ridder into the starting lineup, I felt like it was a developmental period for Arthur Smith as well. How are you as a play caller going to protect him as a rookie quarterback? Are you just going to throw him out there and say whatever happens, happens? Or are you going to protect him with how you call plays? At first, it was I wasn't in love with the play calling at first from him. I felt like he put maybe a little bit too much on Ridder's plate. But as they both, you know, got a little acclimated and got their feet wet and got comfortable, you started to see the play on the field translate. So yes, Arthur Smith he's only been a head coach for 2 years. And again, I don't think people understand how hard it is to be a head coach and a play caller. Like that is tough. I mean, just being a head coach. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah. I was going to say, I can imagine just being a head coach by itself, whether you're the signal caller or not, is a hard thing to do, to learn how to not to micromanage, because you know you want to.
Yes, yeah, but now you kind of sort of have to, because you have both roles. So you have to be cognizant of so much that's going on, and I think he's still learning that along the way as well. But he's getting better.
Right. And then you also, like, you throw in, I've seen a lot of people talk about, like, you know, fire Ragone or, you know, what have you, like, which I think is, again, like, man, we're 2 years into this thing, you know.
What are we firing Ragone for?
Right. That's like, what do you, because people just like, they see that, you know, he's the OC, you know, so like they want to put the blame on, like we're creatures of wanting to put blame on somebody. Right. And so, and sometimes things just don't work out. Right. And like a play might not be the best play at the right time. You know, the other side of the field, or the other opponents are, you know, they're professionals as well. They're paid to stop you or paid to score, like however, you know, you want to look at that. But I think, you know, especially the last two games, not just because we won, but you saw, like, you know, Ridder be a little bit calmer. His, you know, decision making was better, you know, in the Arizona game and better in the Tampa game. You know, obviously we, as most fans, felt like, you know, maybe after the Carolina game would have been a nice time to insert Ridder, but you were still in the mix thanks to Tampa not knowing, not wanting to. I don't know what they were doing down there, but you know, not doing what they should have been doing.
Opportunity,
but also,
go ahead.
Like when it comes to the Carolina things, like we don't know what. I will defer to the coach as far as whether he thinks that Ridder was ready by then or not. If he didn't think Ridder was ready, it wasn't going to do anything but you know, if not destroy his career or anything like that, it could stunt his growth.
Right.
You know, you want to put him in when you feel like he is actually ready, and if he felt like this was the best time and he felt like he was ready at this time, then I'm fine with it. As a fan, would I have preferred to see it earlier? Absolutely, but I'm not getting paid the money that he is.
So. I felt that, you know, we don't know what they see in practice.
Right.
If Ridder shows a few struggles against your second team defense, why would you want to throw him in? Why would you want to throw him into the fire on game days? Like we don't know what the coaching staff saw. I mean, what they saw, and just from what I've heard, honestly, this is the plan all along. And I think people still have yet to come to that particular conclusion. They didn't want to rush Ridder. They wanted Ridder to wait as long as possible. This was never a situation where Ridder was going to start early in the year. This is never a situation where Ridder was going to pick it up halfway through the year. They wanted Mariota to ride this thing out as long as he could. And if Ridder got a couple starts before the season was over with, great. Not, I think they would have been satisfied with that as well. Like this was the plan all along for Ridder to not just be tossed out there. And honestly, I'm okay with that because, like Jonathan said, going out there as a rookie quarterback, having those struggles, that can destroy you mentally. And that's all it takes. That can be the first domino and the main domino to fall. And the next thing you know, you're out of the league in a few years because of the fact that your rookie year just went so awry and you saw too much. And it made you question your ability, your confidence. That's how you end up with the Johnny Manziels and the Brandon Wheatons and the David Carrs by just throwing them out there and say, hey, man, do your thing. See what happens.
Well, in a sense,
David Carr got the hell beat out of him.
Right. I mean, and I get it. That was an expansion Texas team, and they wanted to put him out there to start everything, but they're getting sacked 72 times as a rookie. The kid was never the same mentally.
No.
So was it even really the right idea to do that, even as an expansion team? That's what I was questioning.
Right. And there's like something I try to remind folks, when we're talking about Ridder or whoever, Terry Fontenot brought up Kansas City's model like more than once, of drafting and waiting to insert your QB when the team was ready, or had a better chance of success. And that's something that always, stuck in my mind. Now, with that being said, like, Eric, do you see, like, in their exit interview or in their exit, like, press conference, Arthur Smith was, not necessarily like, super committed in his, verbiage that he used, so do you think that, cause like, I feel like going into 23, Ridder's your starter, at least for 23 is the way, like, sitting here today, I'll go on record and say that's what I feel at mid-January. Like, do you see them like actively going after like a guy like Carr or even a guy like, the Miles just go guy like Lamar Jackson? Like, do you see them like going that route, like actively pushing for that? Or do you think it's like a Deshaun Watson where if it falls in her lap, we'll try to pursue it?
When it comes to him being non-committal to Ridder, I expected that.
Right.
And to be honest with you, as much as I like Ridder, how can you be committed to it at this point? He's only had 4 games. But he's played very solid in those 4 games. And I felt walking away from the season, at the very least, Ridder has earned the opportunity to compete for the job. If he's not going to be handed the keys, he's earned that opportunity to go in and training camp and say, hey, you know what, kid? If you want it, go win it.
Right.
I honestly believe is going to be a situation. We're going to see one or two things. Either they get lucky and the prospect of getting a guy like Lamar Jackson falls into their lap.
Right.
And I think if you're a team like Atlanta, how could you not pursue that? Honestly, like, I know it may be costly in the future. I get it, but this is a 25-year-old former MVP that fits your scheme like a glove and can take you places as an offense. I mean, just imagine alone. Lamar, Algier, Pitts, London. Whew. Man. So if they get lucky and that comes across their table, I think they'll be wise enough to entertain it and see what happens. If not, I still expect them to go out and get a veteran QB, Derek Carr.
Don't do it.
No.
Don't say it.
No. I mean, some of the names I saw floated, which I think would be good for a vet backup, we're talking Heineke,
Yeah.
Bridgewater.
Yep.
Even potential. I saw the name pop up for Rams QB now. Baker Mayfield. I saw his name. I'm kind of whatever on him, but I could see Heineke or Bridgewater being brought in.
Here's a name that no one talks about that I thought would be interesting as a backup. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cooper Rush. If you wanted to bring in a guy that's not necessarily a starter, but he has starting experience, he can at the very least, you got a guy in Cooper Rush that can, put a little heat up on the Ritter and say, hey, man.
Okay, so in
Rush
those
is there.
Right, in those level guys, the Rushes, the Heinekes, even like Gardner Minshew, I've seen people, Jacoby Brissett, I've seen people throw out there.
That's the other name that.
So with those guys, like you bring in a guy like that, to me, that signals that your faith is in Ritter.
Right.
Like, because you know what those guys are.
Like you're bringing in a guy that you can show faith in Ritter, but you know that can honestly is good enough to
get you
the
through
job.
or like good enough to get you through the season if Ritter starts going down in flames.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
so
I
like
don't expect them to go into 2023 with Logan Woodside as the number 2 QB.
But to me, if you bring in a Carr, even if I don't like that idea by any stretch of the, but if you bring in a Carr, like you're saying that like this is a 10-year vet who has started for 10 years.
Yeah.
Carr's
you know what I'm saying?
Carr's not going anywhere that he's not a starter.
That's the kind of the point I'm making there. Like if you bring in a Carr, and I'm even going to go ahead and call it, if Tennessee decides to cut Tannehill and you bring in Tannehill, I don't think you're bringing in Tannehill to be a backup.
I think you are.
You think Tannehill would be a backup?
I think you are, yes. Because of the price tag. You bring in Carr. Right now, Carr still has 3 years left on his deal. I think you guys saw it earlier today when Ian Rappaport tweeted out what like his base salary would be for 2023, which is close to $40 million. That's starter's money. You bring in a guy like Derek Carr, he is your starter. There's no QB competition. There's no go earn this. He's your starter. He's being paid like a starter, and that's who he is. I don't think Tannehill would carry that type of. I'm not sure how much Tannehill has left on his contract, but of course, if he gets cut, that changes things.
Right.
So I look at it, and I also look at it this way. I get individuals are afraid of sending the draft capital along with paying Lamar the type of money that he's probably going to get. And a lot of people compare it to the team paying Matt Ryan his money. You got to look at it this way. You have a 25-year-old quarterback and you got a 30-something-year-old quarterback, and the price tags are the same. Wouldn't you rather pay it to the younger name where you can get that you get more, longer investment? And I'd rather pay Lamar $45 million a year than pay Derek Carr or Matt Ryan.
No doubt. No doubt. On that aspect, no doubt. Like, I get that logic completely. If I'm going to pay anybody right now, you're holding, proverbial gun to my head and say, you got to pay somebody $45 million a year or whatever it is, it's Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
My concern right now is that you're going into year 2 of Lamar Jackson missing major chunks of the season. And as of right now, the Baltimore Ravens are going into the playoffs and he's not going to be starting. And then this is the second year in a row. And this is something I have not dove into yet. It's a thought process that I'm thinking about. So I'm going to say it, but it may not ever go anywhere past this. What is the life expectancy of a running back in the NFL? 3 to 5 years?
Maybe.
I'm talking a good one, a stud one is what I'm saying. Right?
Yeah.
So we're talking 3 to 5 years of effective play. Right? Yeah. Now you have these quarterbacks right now who are doing a lot of running. You have Lamar Jackson, you have
Justin Fields,
you have Deshaun
Hurts.
Watson in his heyday, Jalen Hurts, okay, and these guys aren't able to finish seasons, okay? They're getting dinged up. We don't think about it when it's a running back getting dinged up because it's a running back. That's what they do. It becomes a big deal when it's the quarterback getting dinged up, right? Mm-hmm. And so when the legs are the first option, not the only, but just the first option or one of their main weapons, like it concerns me. So what I'm asking, Eric, does it concern you knowing that these past 2 years he hasn't been able to finish the season and seeing like the immense drop off that immediately happened to Cam Newton?
No,
Cam Newton was like 250 and could handle that.
It doesn't concern me because, as we've seen in recent years, teams still place a premium on those type of quarterbacks. That's why Trey Lance was drafted 3rd overall.
Right.
That's why Justin Fields was drafted and coveted as high as he was. So it's not concerning teams right now to at least when you're in the draft and you have one of those guys in front of you, you see teams are scrambling over each other to get one of those guys.
No doubt.
So it's not concerning me. My concern with those situations when it comes to that type of quarterback, and you're starting to see it a little bit in Philly, hopefully Chicago follows the same formula. It's fine to have that type of quarterback, but surround him with so much weaponry that the legs are not the first option.
That's
Philly's starting to do that.
Right.
Jalen Hurts is still going to be a running quarterback. He's still going to be a running quarterback. Okay, that's fine. But option 1 is AJ. Option 2 is Devontae. Option 3 is Goddard. You got Miles Sanders back there. There's so many weapons around him that his legs may be plan D. Like it's just we're not even. We don't even if we need your legs to win us games or make plays, then cool. But there's so much weaponry around. So I think in the aspect of bringing in a Lamar Jackson to Atlanta, I don't think you're bringing in Lamar to be that running quarterback that can get you 1,000 yards on the ground. You're bringing him in because you feel you can supply him with more weaponry than Baltimore did. All Baltimore really did was gave him Mark Andrews. They gave him a running game. And, even that running game hasn't really been healthy over the past few years.
No,
JK's been hurt. Gus Edwards has been hurt. When they bought Mark Ingram in, he's been hurt. Everybody's been beat up back there. So
they didn't talk to their strength and conditioning people.
You're right. Like it's not to mention the offensive line has been. Ronnie Stanley has missed time. Like everybody
traded Orlando Brown Jr.
Literally everybody on that offensive line has been beat to hell except Mark Andrews. On that offense has been beat to hell except Mark Andrews. Really.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So at least with Atlanta, you say, hey, you know what? We got a scheme for you. If he can operate this scheme with his eyes closed. We'll give you a Kyle Pitts, who I believe essentially will be better than Mark Andrews.
Oh, yeah.
We'll give you a Drake London. We see what Drake has been this year with Mariota and Ritter.
Yeah.
He can be – he has a very bright future, has a very high ceiling, has probably a bigger ceiling than anybody that Baltimore has brought in at the receiver position. You got a guy like Tyler Algier. You're probably going to add another running back in tow this year. I think in this situation, yes, you're bringing in Lamar. It's going to be a heavy price tag, but man, the skill set that could be around him, you may not even really think about his legs until he takes off for 40 yards. Like, oh yeah, we can beat you that way too. That is right. So I it's not my first option.
Got you.
I think this offseason is best to take that money there and spend it wisely and spread it.
Like build defense, build the trenches all the way around.
But it's not often you can get a 25-year-old former MVP with his skill set, with your scheme. I think it makes it even better the fact that you have the scheme that can it fits him and he can be able to operate in that scheme. And, you take a step back a little bit when it comes to division foes and all that type of stuff. And, it can be a nice setup for him.
Yeah. And like I get the, and I'll to JR's question earlier, does it scare me? Does it scare me with Lamar Jackson? Absolutely. Does it mean that if we were given the chance that I would, and we make the move and we get him and we give up the potential draft capital and we pay the man the money and all those things, am I going to, like poo that all over the place? Like, oh, this is a bad decision. No, I think it would be okay. But I do agree that I would prefer build the team around what we currently have.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Philadelphia and they won a Super Bowl with Foles because they had awesome offensive line. They had awesome defensive line.
They had
build the
backs.
They had all the running backs.
Yeah. But like build the absolute best, potentially most dominant offensive line you can make.
Mm-hmm.
Build the absolute best, most dominant defensive line you can make. That is where I want to spend the money right now because I want what Philadelphia has. Right. Because they have the weapons and we've got weapons and we're probably going to add to that. But we've got the foundation. We've got like we talked about in our podcast on Tuesday. We have the triplets right now. But I mean, at the very least, you have Algier, you have Drake London. You're going to get Kyle Pitts back. You're probably going to add a wide receiver too, either in the draft or in free agency. Another running back as well. So the weapons will be there. This is the offseason where I think we really have the opportunity to build out, especially the defensive line. Offensive line, if literally the offensive line played exactly the same next year as they played this year, I would be super happy with that. Like that kind of consistency.
Can we get a little bit better pass protection though? I mean, a little bit.
But now, granted, I think that would come anyways with having Pitts, having London in his second year, having a wide receiver too, especially if it's a vet wide receiver too. Having Algier in season 2 and having probably I would assume we're going to have CP84. Have him back next year. We're going to have plenty of weapons that we can distribute that ball. We can get rid of that ball quick enough that I think that's going to help it out anyways. And then Ritter is mobile enough to help out that offensive line when it does give up the pressure. So I'm not necessarily worried about the pass pro. I think the pass pro will get better, hopefully, assuming we don't see like, oh, we had a great offensive line, and then we come in the next year and it's like
we turn into offensive line.
Like Andy's offensive line. We got Andy's offensive line that was the best in the league last year. Coming this year, it's like, what happened?
Right.
I hope people can understand that when it comes to getting a guy like Lamar Jackson, especially with the cap space that they're looking to have this offseason, is definitely going to cost some draft assets, that's for sure. But it's not going to hinder the team from adding another addition or two to the offense. No. Like they'll still be able to get a RB2 in the draft. Mm-hmm. And I got a couple names in mind that they can search for on day 2 of the draft. They will still, like, if roughly, I think they're looking at maybe between 70 to 85 million, depending on restructures and cuts in free agency. So yes, bringing in Lamar is going to take a good chunk of that, but you'll still have the ability to get, I don't know, maybe a Juju Smith or maybe a guy like Alan Lazard. You still have the ability to get those type of guys. It's not, and honestly, the running back depth in free agency is not that bad, honestly, if you want to go the veteran route there. Kareem Hunt could be available this offseason. David Montgomery could be there. Miles Sanders is an option. Devin Singletary from Buffalo is an option. So it's not – getting Lamar is not going to handcuff the team the entire time. They'll still have room to do a little bit more.
That part has never, like, concerned me in a sense. Like, I we talk cap and, but there's enough ways to voodoo the cap. We've been watching the Saints do it for years.
Right.
That, if need be, the cap is a myth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, eventually you have to pay the piper and it'll cost you here and there. But, if need be, you can manipulate a lot of different things, especially considering right now you don't have, a huge hit for Pitts and London and Algier. You're going to have to fork over something soon enough for Lindstrom, McGarry, if you want to bring him back, and Terrell, if you want to, hold on to him. But outside of that, you don't have a ton that you really necessarily have to lock up.
And right, exactly. And I think a lot of people may not necessarily realize that at this point, but honestly, it can work if they front load a ton of the contract early on, maybe the first 2 or 3 years, front load it. Because right now they're not really facing any major pending free agents coming up. Lindstrom is probably going to need an extension. I get AJ Terrell is going to need one. Outside of that, who else?
I mean, at most, you can make a case for McGarry if you think that, his play isn't a 1-year wonder. He could be, a candidate for the franchise tag if you think that you want to see him do it for another year before you sign him to a long term. But yeah, I mean, you don't have a ton of in-house guys. I don't think you're necessarily, depending on something we got to get here in just a minute, your thoughts on the DC, you got guys like Lorenzo Carter, depending on what you think of him, whether you want to bring him back, Rashaan Evans, if you want to, depending on what you think there,
Yeah, but yeah, again, I think they'll have that wiggle room to front load if they were to bring in Lamar's contract and give him that mega deal. They'll be able to front load it the first couple of years because of the fact that you don't have to worry about 2024. That guy's up for a contract. That guy's up for a contract. You literally maybe have 1 or 2 key players that are in line or will be in line for a contract extension. So you can have that wiggle room to front load that money. That way in 2024, your cap space in 2024 is not necessarily, it's not bloated. You're not right. In debt. 2025 as well. So they will have that ability to do so. But it's just, it depends. Me personally, man, again, it's not my main option going into the offseason.
No.
Again, as we stated, I'd rather them take that cap space, spread it across the roster. But I honestly feel if Lamar Jackson was on this Falcons team today, they're a playoff team.
Oh yeah, even with the way it's constructed right now.
Even with the way it's constructed,
definitely. I am in 100% agreement in that aspect. So for the time being, let's put away the hypotheticals and the what ifs as far as the QB situation goes, and let's turn to the hypotheticals and what ifs of potential DCs. We have a vacancy, and that's not something that we were able to really get into a ton on our show on Tuesday, just because Chat was doing what Chat does, which is asking great questions. But who is your number one number one choice as far as DC goes? Do you have anybody in mind? Because you're getting guys Brian Flores that's interviewing in the Cleveland, and you got Jared Mayo who's interviewing, and all these guys like Jim Schwartz are starting to get interviews, and Arthur Smith comes out and says they're not in any huge rush, and you're like, well, why not? You should be in a huge rush.
Well, I mean, there's only 2 teams that's in need of a DC right now, Cleveland and the Falcons. So I can see them taking their time, but at the same time, you got these draft workouts, these bowl games, Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl coming up. I would prefer to have a coach in place before those things kick off.
Yeah.
It'll make the scouting of the draft a little bit easier.
So he mentioned something, and I don't, maybe I don't know. He mentioned the format now is different, and it affords them that time where it wasn't necessarily that way in the past. Do you know what he's talking about with that? Because I'm not 100% sure what he's talking about.
The format is different.
I think he's talking about the coaching hiring process is a little bit different. I don't think that they can talk to guys who are in the playoffs just yet.
Yeah, that will have to wait until towards the end of the month in order for them to, if they want to talk to a DC that's in the playoffs, they'll have to wait towards the last week of January to do that. That window for them, yeah. But I mean, I think there's plenty of candidates out there right now that are not in the playoffs. Personally, I feel this. this is to me, this is arguably the most important offseason in Falcons history because these opportunities don't come around, guys. When the last time we've seen the Falcons enter an offseason when they have $80 million to spend? It does not come around often, okay?
Nope.
Not only that, but the landscape of the NFC South and what it could look like
wide
in
open
is not only wide open. The Falcons may stand out from the pack right now, honestly, because the Bucs are going to have to answer so many questions. The Saints are going to have to answer so many questions. The Panthers may be stuck with the roster that they have now. They may not really be able to make many moves. Not to mention they still haven't figured out who's going to be their head coach. So
right.
It's an important offseason for the Falcons on the field and off the field, in my opinion. And I think they have an opportunity to make a statement, not only on their roster, but on their coaching staff. You want to go out. You want to use your money in free agency. You want to add players here and there. You want to, upgrade the team considerably in free agency. I feel like you should do the same on the coaching staff. You want to make a statement there, make a statement on the coaching staff. It's easy to go out and get this young, up-and-coming, bright assistant coach who, a lot of people around the league are talking about him and he could be the next big thing. Or you can say, hey, you know what? Let's get a guy. Let's keep that theme going. Let's get this veteran DC that's been around the block, he's coached big games. He's been in big games. He knows how to handle personalities. Let's bring that in. Right now, if you were to get a guy like Brian Flores, I think that makes a statement. I think we're serious about this. If you get a guy like Lovie Smith, I think you're making a statement. We're serious about this.
And plus, like a guy like that, a Flores, a Lovie, even a Fangio, these guys have been head coaches and you can almost do like without the animosity and the turmoil, but you can almost do like a, Ditka Buddy Ryan situation.
Yep.
Where we're talking about at the top of the show where, Arthur Smith is head coach and play caller. Like if you get a guy that you really can trust, on the other side of the ball, who has that head coaching experience, who like, especially like a Brian Flores, has the head coaching experience, comes from the same kind of tree that, Dean Pease came from.
Yeah.
So it should be familiar there in that aspect.
I believe it was you that brought it up, but, going out and I can't help but go back to when Sean McVay first took over with the Rams.
Yep.
And I still think to this day, arguably his best hire was getting Wade Phillips.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
As a young head coach, bringing in a DC like that where you can say, hey, you know what? That's your thing.
Yeah.
Your thing.
Handle that.
I don't have to worry about that on Sundays. I think that's critical, especially for young head coaches like Arthur Smith, who's also, again, juggling that role as head coach, play caller, similar to Sean McVay. He already had enough on his plate, so he brought in a veteran DC that says, you know what, I don't have to worry about that on Sundays. He's going to do his thing. I'm going to focus on my side of the ball. I think he should do that. I think it's key for him to do that. Get a guy that's been around the block, that knows a thing or two. Getting Dean Pease at the time, I think it was a great hire. I'll be honest with you, though. I wasn't in love with Dean Pease and his play calling over his over his time in Atlanta. But just the facet of you as a first-time head coach, you're getting a guy like that to lead the defensive side of the ball. I think he should follow that up again.
Well, and I liked Dean Pease, coming in, and I agree, and I'll agree with you in that there were times where I was like, why are we doing this on the defensive side? Right. But I after listening to the press conference with Arthur Smith and Fontenot, I think one of the main things that he was brought in for was because they knew, hey, this is not going to be this is going to be very talent deficient roster for a couple of years.
Yep.
But we want to try to build, we're going to get a couple drafts in. We're going to bring in some young guys and we're going to bring in some vet guys along with a veteran DC that can help to build what they talked about, build that foundation, that cultural foundation of like what this team is going to do on defense. We didn't always execute properly. He may have wanted to call other things, but he couldn't because of who we had on the field. There's no real way for us to know for sure. But I think him building that foundation and then leaving it to the next person, whoever that is I think we'll probably look back, assuming things work out the way we all hope it does.
Right.
We may look back at the Pease hiring as more of the setting the table thing.
Right.
And then the next guy comes in and benefits from that, where they don't have to go through that process. That process is already there. It's already been done. That foundation is there, and they can just build on top of that and stand on the shoulders of the guy before him instead of having to start from the ground up. And to that end, I would love Brian Flores. I think Flores is probably going to end up being a head coach, but
I don't know. Like, I hate to get into the political side of things or the bureaucratic side or the bureaucratic side of it. But if he's still holding tight to that, to his lawsuit, which I don't see why he wouldn't be, I'm not sure that, part of me wonders if he's even going to step out from under the umbrella of Mike Tomlin.
I was surprised, but then I wasn't surprised that Pittsburgh brought him in.
It didn't surprise me.
I think at that point in time, his options were pretty limited anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was a matter of that organization, that head coach that said, you know what, we're going to give you a shot. I don't think those options were on the table. As far as being a head coach,
I don't know, dude. When you start leveling lawsuits, that starts rubbing folks the wrong way.
Leveling lawsuits, when you start throwing owners under the bus,
that's what I'm saying.
Publicly,
right. You become again, not trying to get into political or bureaucratic stuff, but you become a marked person at that point.
I get it. This is.
But I mean, Blank could be one of those owners that, could easily shelter him as well in that sense. I could see with the things that Blank does, around Atlanta and stuff like that, I could easily see him, checking off and being like, yeah, bring him in.
He was getting ready to bring in a quarterback last year.
That's what I'm saying.
A sexual assault probe hanging over his head.
Right.
Why would he not bring in a guy?
Why would he care about? Right. Not care is not the right word, but
I'm not saying he doesn't. Yeah, I don't want to say he doesn't care, but I think he's one of those individuals that, hey, if I believe in the person, I'm going to give them an opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can see him being that open arm owner that says, you know what, Brian, yes, you deserve another chance.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Yep. No, I agree. I as it was one of those deals, as I started talking it out loud, the wheels start turning. And I was like, wait a minute, Blank is one of those owners.
But he's one of those players owners, man. He give everybody a shot. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, he is one of those owners.
But real quick, the other name that I personally feel like the guy I would really, really, I guess, be the top pick for me might be Jim Schwartz.
Dude, I would love Jim Schwartz.
I would love to have Jim Schwartz here. So I don't know if he wants to come back and coach as a DC or a head coach or whatever. But
he was taking interviews in Cleveland as well, I think.
There's ties there as well. They were Arthur and Schwartz were together in Tennessee.
Yep. That may be a guy that he could
my
trust.
My only thing is age. Schwartz he's nearing 70, isn't he?
No, Jim Schwartz, he's in his 50s. If that.
I thought he was a little older than that.
Hold on. Now
I thought he was in his 60s.
We're gonna have to go to the Googles because
I thought he was a little older than that.
Hold on.
Maybe I'm off. Maybe I'm completely off. But I mean, I can see that because of the fact that they work together.
Right. Let's
see.
He was born in 60s. He's 56 years old.
56. Okay, I was way off. I don't buy. I
think you're thinking of Fangio. Fangio is probably close to 70.
Fangio would definitely be Dean Pease 2.0 again.
Right. Fangio would be like Dean Pease 2.0.
You're bringing him in, but it's probably not a long-term thing, which I'm wondering also, are they looking to avoid that? Are they looking to say, let's bring a guy in that we know is going to be here for a while, and not a older DC that's probably got maybe 2 or 3 years, and we're going to be looking for another DC again.
Right. I would hope that's what he did make mention about like being multiple, and that's what he wants. So,
right. So yeah, me personally, option number 1 is probably Brian Flores. I do like Lovie Smith a lot.
Yeah.
I think Lovie Smith, yes, he orchestrates out of the 4-3 Tampa 2 look, but you can show some 3-4 tendencies in that particular scheme as well. He's a guy that's not afraid to get multiple. He had to get multiple a little bit in Houston with the personnel that he had, because he didn't necessarily have Tampa 2 personnel for a while there. So he had to kind of sort of be a little creative. Those 2 names come to mind. I never really bought the Jim Haslett thing.
No, I don't. I think that's, that's just,
I bought it
trying to make connections.
Right. I bought it to a certain extent because there's familiarity, but I never bought it like that's the first guy that they thought of. I nenever bought that. Yeah. As soon as Dean retired, hey, let's get Jim on the phone.
Let's pick up. Let's pick up and call
Haslett.
Ain't been in the league since 2014. Let's call Jim Haslett. And wasn't even successful then.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure that I'm not buying that. There may be some interest because of they're familiar with each other, but I don't think he's option A on the table.
Right.
Well, it's and the other thing I just like tweaked in my brain, like earlier you were saying, JR, like we're seeing this team has talked to this guy, this team has talked. We're also I did hear Arthur Smith say they've already talked to some people already. And it's possible they may have talked to some other people and they just haven't announced it.
I wonder if
they may have been discussions, but they'll probably announce an actual interview. But I wouldn't be surprised if they made a couple phone calls already and just
like gauging folks' interest.
Yeah.
Because I wonder how much of it might be like a Frank Bush or a Ted Monachino, type talk to.
I feel they want to go outside. When it comes to this hire. I don't feel like they want to promote from within. I feel like
they kind of you don't feel like if that was the course,
right? You wouldn't make a statement that you're going to cast a wide net,
right?
I feel like
the wide net statement.
The wide net statement was like, okay, you know what? They're looking everywhere. They're looking under every rock. They're looking behind every corner. They're looking, They're not just saying, hey, Frank, you want to do this?
Hey, Frank, how you feeling, bro?
How you feel, man? You ready? I don't think
Frank?
And not to mention, you guys remember last year. This is a staff that was very meticulous when it came to the hiring process. Man, they took their time with this thing.
Oh yeah,
and I think they're going to do it again this year.
And probably right. But like you said, I hope they have it more in place by the time the Senior Bowl rolls around.
Yeah,
and especially considering. Like we talked about it, like we ain't even got to it yet, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but it's been announced that the Falcons are coaching the East-West Shrine game.
Right.
So you think you'd like to have somebody in place, maybe,
which kind of ups that time.
Ups that ante just to.
We ain't got that long, guys. We got a Shrine Bowl. We got a coach here.
Unless you're just like, I'm gonna let unless you're. Part of your deal is, hey, I want you to come in and be the DC, but I want to keep this core position group.
And you send your assistants down.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So say part of the stipulation is, hey, I want you to be the DC, but you got to work with Fred Bush and Ted Monachino and whoever else. And those are the 2 names I could think of. Then you send those guys to the Shrine Bowl.
Which may be part of those phone conversations that we were just talking about, where you're calling a couple guys and saying, hey, if you were to come in and be our DC, how do you feel about working with this guy?
Right.
What about this guy? Do you feel comfortable? Not necessarily an interview, but just having a conversation
out of curiosity, kind of.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they called a few guys already. with that.
Because to me, like that's with what's coming up, that's be about the only way that you could afford to take your time in a sense. Because like you're gonna want your DC like giving you the input that he needs.
Right.
With incoming talent, whether it's, player like pro personnel or, draftable guys. And you'll be missing valuable time there.
Ideally, I want my DC at the combine.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I want him there.
Yep. I want my DC at the combine. I want my DC at pro days. I want my DC like running drills if I can get him doing it. Like,
yes.
Like I want to see how the Rashid Hagmans like react to this guy yelling at him.
Yeah.
In a sense.
I want that. I want my DC to get a feel as far as who he wants to add to what we already have. Yeah.
10-4. Well, man, we are both.
One last thing. D'Amico Ryans. That D'Amico, name, not D'Amico Ryans. Jared Mayo.
I was about to say
Jared Mayo.
There's a report that the Patriots are looking to lock him up.
Yeah, here's Patriots to extend Jared Mayo. So we'll begin interview for an offensive coordinator.
I'm starting to cross him off the list.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay in New England.
I don't think New England lets him out of the building now.
Right. I think he
gets a great name there, Jonathan. That definitely would have been a candidate. He's definitely one of those D'Amico type candidates.
Yep.
That you feel can definitely be a true defensive signal caller in the years, and I think Belichick is already starting to see that.
Yep.
Stupid Belichick.
This guy, right? Yeah, I know this is a Falcons thing, but I'm glad he's interviewing for an OC. Whatever.
Oh yeah, no doubt. That was stupid. Like, what are you doing?
You try to pull
like Matt Patricia. Come on, like.
See, this is Bill trying to be Bill. And
I'm thinking I'm the smartest man in the room.
Yeah, come on, man.
Stop it, dude.
I never worried about titles. Okay, you had Charlie Weiss and Josh McDaniels calling plays for how long? You had Bill O'Brien calling plays for how long? Like all these guys were actual OCs.
Actual OCs.
And now you don't care about a title,
right?
Like, and the crazy thing, if you had like it didn't even have to be like the Bill O'Briens of the world. You get just like a middle of the road OC. That team's probably in the playoffs because that defense was good.
He took a former DC.
I know.
You took a natural bred DC and say, "Hey, here's the playbook."
Yeah, go get it. Go get it, killer.
Nope.
What?
Man.
Look, if you got Mac Jones yelling at you on the field,
Mac Jones is like run the ball. Like, come on, we got a problem.
Right. Like Mac Jones
that was clearly Bill trying to be Bill, and he outsmarted himself. Like, dude.
Yep. That's like me in fantasy football leagues. Okay. I think I'm over here outguessing myself.
I'm looking at Tom. I mean, I'm looking at Bill right now, and I'm like, you need Tom so bad.
He really needs Tom Brady to retire and just go be OC.
You need Tom so bad. You miss him, don't you? You have not been the same since he left.
No, he's been even more cantankerous and crazy.
Not been the same coach. You miss him, don't you? I know you.
No, but I think if they can get the right OC in there, their defense is set. They get the right OC in there that can basically, because Mac Jones is not. I'm gonna say it. Mac Jones is not a horrible quarterback.
No, he's serviceable.
What they need what they need, Mac Jones is okay.
Right. Absolutely.
He's.
I think Bill's. I don't want to get too far off track, but I think Bill's starting to lose a little bit of luster as the type of head coach that we thought he was. Like this post Tom Brady era
hasn't been nice to him. That much is for sure.
Ugly, man. Like
he's starting to look mediocre.
He is.
He's starting to look mediocre.
Starting to look like an average head coach.
That's it. He's starting to not look like an absolute genius.
Everything. This is what happens when you don't have the greatest quarterback that's ever played the game.
Right. I've already come to the conclusion. It was more Tom than Bill.
I'll put it to you like this, and I'll give you a different analogy or like a different example. Like Philly ran out Andy Reid, and then Andy Reid got Patrick Mahomes. So, like in the thought process behind Andy Reid as a head coach, completely changed. because you got Patrick Mahomes. So, like coaching is great, and coaching is awesome. But
he's still gonna have his gold jacket,
right? But you got to have the horses to drive the car. You got to, and if you ain't got it,
it's starting to look more like Tom than Bill, man. I'm sorry. That dynasty is starting to look like Tom was the fuel there.
At least on the offensive side, I will say this: that defense.
Oh, he can coach a defense.
That man can coach a defense. He can coach a defense.
Like he's stuck to the formula of we're not going to overpay for anybody. We're going to have a solid edge rusher in place that we know can consistently get after the quarterback. We're still going to implement our scheme. We're still going to be versatile on the back end. That has worked. But, man, from giving Cam Newton the keys to the car, having that whole ordeal a year later with Mac and Cam and that whole preseason and how funky that went to this, like you're giving Matt Patricia the play calling duties. What's going on, Bill?
Oh, yeah.
Man,
that was it's been a train wreck to watch, and
what are you doing?
Yeah, I have absolutely enjoyed it, but it almost comes across, and this, some people may hear me say this, and they're like, "Well, of course," but it definitely comes across as he is trying to prove that it wasn't all
absolutely.
Yep.
Every single
He's trying to prove it.
Every single day, Bill Belichick is waking up thinking, I have to prove that it wasn't Tom. Every single day. He woke up this morning thinking that way. And
thinking he had to prove it wasn't Tom.
It's not even in the postseason. He woke up this morning eating a bowl of cereal thinking, how can I prove that I'm better than Tom? Like he's doing that. And he's failing.
Miserably.
Even the one time that they made the postseason, they got obliterated. When was the last time? When was the last time we've seen them lose in the postseason? When was the last time we've seen them get mopped in the postseason the way that they did against Buffalo?
Oh, dude,
they didn't belong there.
No, that was a Georgia TCU situation.
It definitely was
an NFL version of that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we got way off track here.
That's all right. Hey, we're allowed to. We're allowed to.
Hey, I am the master of the tangents on our show. So to have somebody else doing it. Taking the weight off my shoulders.
But anyway, we were bumping up on an hour, and if I don't get out of here, my wife might start throwing things at me. So I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, 3 questions. I want your honest answer.
4 questions.
No, 3. We're going with 3. Anyway.
It just kept going up.
All right, I got it. All right. Who's the DC? Who's the first pick? And is Ridder the starter? Like that's the 3 questions I want to put you on the spot with.
Brian Flores.
All right.
A trade down.
Oh, nice. Oh, okay.
And Joey Porter Jr.
Oh, very good. I like Joey Porter Jr. I've watched a little bit of his tape.
And yes, Ridder is the starter.
There you go. Okay.
I would be happy with that if that happened.
Yeah. Like
I would be perfectly happy.
I definitely would not be upset with that. Those are solid, like more than solid.
Because I think they're going to answer a few questions in free agency. I think we're looking at the roster. We're seeing several holes, but I think they'll be able to plug a number of holes in free agency that when it's time to draft at number 8, they got a little flexibility. They may look at the board and say, hey, we're not in love with it right now. We can fall back a few spots.
Right. Here's one thing I want to leave everybody on in a sense. There's a comment that Rich McKay made that I commented on Twitter that Daniel Flick of SI reported saying that Rich McKay said it was impressive that Fontenot and Smith have stuck to their initial plan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's 2 things. One, that lets me know that there ain't no way on God's green earth that their initial plan could have included Deshaun Watson. So to me, you told on yourself. Okay. So you told on yourself there that came from higher up, right? Mm-hmm. But if they stuck to their initial plan, I cannot see how their initial plan is going to include another franchise's quarterback. You know what I'm saying? It's hard for me to think Now,
well, I mean,
again,
it's easy to not think that way. It's
Just
easy
saying.
to go into an offseason thinking like, okay, here's our plan, but then there's a wrench being thrown into your plans.
I get
And
you on that.
That wrench being thrown into the plans is Lamar saying, I wouldn't mind playing for you guys. That's all it would take. That's all it took for everything that happened with Deshaun last year.
Yeah,
all
true.
it took was Deshaun to say, I would play with you guys. Oh, really?
Skirt.
That's right. That's all it would take. All it would take is Lamar saying, I mean, it don't even have to be publicly. It can be somebody can be asking him a question on TikTok, and he's like, yeah, I can play in Atlanta. The gears are going to start turning. You said what? You want to? Oh, okay.
Say who?
Exactly. Like it's just that's my thing. I don't think that's their priority. But if it comes across their way, I think I honestly believe they might entertain it.
Well, man, Eric, appreciate your time. Appreciate you jumping on with us. Appreciate you stirring the pot. I love it. We're going to definitely have to have you back on, like probably after the draft. Because I'm definitely going to want to get your thoughts on who we draft, free agent. We might even do like after the initial wave of like free agency, sit down and have a talk again, and then after the draft, sit down and have a talk again. Because
we do a mock draft. We can do a mock draft after the initial stage of free agency.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll sit down.
We did one Tuesday. Chat was kind of.
They were dead on it, but we'll do a whole daggum. Then you and Adam did a whole, like the whole league first round last year, didn't you? Was that y'all? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Kevin does it every year. Yeah.
So we'll definitely have to get you on to do that.
Yeah, I remember.
Anything you want to plug before we jump out of here?
Not really, man. Just. I really don't have anything to plug. I'm not part of the Falcoholic.
Yeah, but I say you're not in the limelight anymore.
I don't want to plug another platform, but I don't really have anything to plug.
Well, y'all see his Twitter handle on his name there. Eric_Robinson. Hit him up. He's like he runs spaces all the time, and they are fun to get into.
Be sensitive. I am fragile. Okay.
Oh, he is.
Please.
Yeah, I've jumped into a couple of your spaces recently. It is absolutely a fun time to listen to.
It's definitely entertaining.
I just like to talk football, man.
That's it. And
absolutely.
As always, Falcons fans, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128, GRIMM1128. Jonathan
M. Holder.
And as keep your eye on the channel. We'll be back live on Tuesday, and we'll have shorts and all other type things popping up. So y'all just keep an eye on that. As always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.